Okay, so I'm going to do a quick demonstration on how to take a trackcast kit, unpack it and set it up for streaming on a mat. So we start out with a kit, comes like this. Inside should be everything that you need to stream a mat. Open it up. The cables are going to be laid out on the top. If I take this layer off and set it off to the side, the next layer is the computer and the power adapter for the computer. I'll also set that over here, and then on the bottom level we have our four components, larger components, that we're going to set up. So first thing that we do is get the computer out and get power to it. So take the computer, set it on the table. Take our power adapter, plug it into the computer over here on the left hand side, and just run it down here to my power supply or my surge strip and plug that in. In these cables we should have 9 items. We've got a power cord that allows us to go from our power source to the camera. It's 15 feet. We have a mouse, which goes, the mouse actually plugs into this USB hub, which you plug in on the hub on the left hand or on the right hand side of the computer, and then take your mouse and plug it into here, into the hub. There might be more things that you want to plug into the USB, which is why we use this hub. Maybe like a microphone or a start-stop switch or something like that. You have a USB Ethernet adapter, which typically runs from the USB on the computer to the score clock. We have a lock for the computer, which you should have the combination, you should know the combination. And if you don't, just contact Trackwrestling through the ticket system or call the support line and you can get the combination for the lock. The lock typically just goes around the table. So if you look here, I would probably wrap it around the table like this, a leg or something like that, slide it through the loop, pull it tight, and on the side of the computer here, you can see a small hole. You just push the knob on the lock, slide it into the hole, it snaps into there, and then turn the combination so that nobody could come along and push the button again and pull it back out. So that way if someone wants to take your computer, they have to take the whole table. Let's see, so now that our computer is set up, we have a mouse attached to the computer, we have power and the computer locked. I'm going to start to set up the camera. So the camera is here in the bottom level of the kit, and this tripod stand is what the camera goes on top of. So to open up the tripod, you just pull the bottom out like this, tip this up. I typically, if it's going to be on the table, I leave the legs not extended. If I put it next to the table, typically extend the bottom 2 legs. And these the same. So now set the tripod stand next to the table and take my camera, and it just comes in here. If you want to get in a little closer, just slides right into this top of the stand, and this lever then locks it in place. This is the zoom control wand that goes onto the camera tripod, and it just slides onto here, onto the handle, and you can actually hear it lock or see it lock in. If you need to take it off, there's this push release right here on the side that I push in and slide it off. So one of these cables down here goes between this tripod stand wand and the camera itself in order to allow these buttons to work and control the camera. That cord looks like this. It's got, if you look at this wand, on the top of the wand it has this plug right here, which matches this cord's plug. So I'm just gonna take this, plug it into there, slide this onto there to lock it in, and then the other end plugs in right below the handle here. There's a flap. I don't know if you can catch this, but right here I just flip this flap up here on the right hand side and make sure I plug this in. Shouldn't force it, it should go in nice and easy, and it just sort of clips in there. So now I've got my connection between the wand and the camera. So the next thing I want to do is make sure that my camera has power. They won't run on battery very long, and so you definitely need to run power to the camera. The cables that provide power is this USB to AC adapter, which plugs in right here on the handle of the camera. I pull out this USB and plug it in right here. And then this is going to plug into power. However, you're going to need to extend power from someplace, which is what this 15-foot power cable is for. So if I take this power cable and go from the power source over here and run it over to my camera. This is an important step here. Once you get this power source over to the camera, make sure you tie it off right here on the tripod stand. And the reason is because if this gets pulled on, it's pulling on this heavy duty cable, and then you're not putting any stress on this smaller cable where it's plugged in here. So I tie it off, plug this in, and now the camera has power. So now what I would need to do is connect my camera to my computer, and there's 3 parts that make that connection. We have the StarTech video capture device, which goes between the camera and the computer. And we have these 2 cables. One of them is mini HDMI to HDMI, and that runs from the camera to the StarTech. So on the StarTech there is an HDMI input. So I take this, plug it into here, and run the mini HDMI over to the camera. And again, this is more important than making sure this is tied off, although they're both important. This mini HDMI plugs in. If I open up the flap here on this camera and pull down this flap, there's a mini HDMI spot to plug this in. However, this plug is very weak. So if I plug this in and there's strain on this cable, it can wiggle loose and break this plug in. So what we want to do is tie this off on the tripod just like we did with the power cord. So I'm going to tie this off down here and then plug it in, which removes all of the strain on this cable from wrecking this. So then we have our camera connected to our StarTech. We need to plug the StarTech into the computer. So I'm going to take this last cable, which has a very clear end that plugs into this spot on the StarTech. So you can see those 2 things match. Plug that in there. And then the other end of this USB has to plug in directly to a USB 3.0 port on your computer. So on the left hand side of these computers, almost every one of our kits, there's 2 USB ports, and I plug this into the one closest to the screen. So that now connects my camera to the StarTech, my StarTech to the computer. There's one more piece to this kit, and this is if you're using a Track Wrestling score clock. And we typically would plug this into the other USB port on here, and then this would run, you'd have a cable running from here to your clock. If you're not using a Track Wrestling clock, you don't have to worry about that. Finally, your kit has to be connected to the internet. So you should have an Ethernet cable run to your table, and you're just going to plug that Ethernet cable into the Ethernet jack on the computer in order to give you internet. So that's plugging in all the equipment.